So Matt Miller just dropped a 7-round NFL mock draft on ESPN, so I wanted to run through how I would do a 3-round superflex rookie mock based on the landing spots in Matt's mock draft. And before we start, I just want to say that I hope this mock draft is extremely accurate because the landing spots and draft capital we get for a bunch of these rookies are phenomenal. This is probably about as ideal as we can possibly get for the 2025 class. So I'm going to start with the first 3 picks, 101 to 1.03, because nothing has changed for me based on the landing spots in this mock. Ashton Jeanty is still easily the 1.01 after going 10th overall to the Chicago Bears. He would be incredible in that offense behind the newly revamped offensive line, and we've already seen what Ben Johnson can do with an elite first-round running back already in Jahmyr Gibbs. So imagine him with Ashton Jeanty carrying the entire workload for Chicago. Then 1.02 is still Omarion Hampton for me, who goes in the first round to the Chargers at 22 overall. I could see some people being slightly wary about this landing spot for 2025 initially because they did just sign Najee Harris, but Omarion Hampton is better than Najee Harris. Najee's contract is only a 1-year deal worth $5 million, which almost $4 million of that was a signing bonus. So he's only making a base salary of $1.5 million for the year. That is nothing. That is insurance that they have a guy in case they don't get who they want in the draft. And they got Omarion Hampton in this mock draft, who instantly becomes the RB1 with a wide open path to breakout seasons after Najee leaves in 2026. And then 1.03 is Cam Ward, the first overall pick to the Tennessee Titans. Brian Callahan gets his franchise quarterback to begin building around, and it's really not a bad situation for a rookie quarterback either. They have Calvin Ridley still, Chikakonkwo tight end, Pollard and Spears at running back, and they do add a very interesting rookie wide receiver later in this mock draft that we'll get to at the end of the video. I just believe that Cam Ward is a really good quarterback, and the pieces are there for some immediate success plus future success if they continue building around him over the next couple of years. So don't overthink this one. Cam Ward 1.03. Now we get to the fun part, and I'm going to group the next 3 picks together again because they're all running backs drafted in the early second round. TreVeyon Henderson is at 1.04, Caleb Johnson's at 1.05, and Quinshon Judkins at 1.06. So we'll start with TreVeyon Henderson, who lands with the Vegas Raiders at 37 overall. So almost immediately on day 2, reuniting with Chip Kelly, and is the immediate, zero questions asked RB1 for the team. Matt doesn't even have the Raiders drafting another running back at all in this mock. So they would literally have TreVeyon, Raheem Mostert, and that's pretty much it in terms of depth chart. As long as Henderson stays healthy, he would probably be a top 20 running back in redraft leagues this year and probably a top 12 back immediately in Dynasty with this landing spot. Then at 105 is Caleb Johnson, who goes 7 picks after TreVeyon Henderson in this early second round, landing with the Dallas Cowboys. Holy crap. Again, just about as ideal of a landing spot as we could possibly get for Caleb Johnson, who could be used as a full 3-down workhorse and would be the immediate RB1 for Dallas. Sorry to Javonte Williams. We already saw what Rico Dowdle was able to do in this offense last year without Dak Prescott. So imagine what Caleb Johnson can do with Dak and hopefully a return to a high-powered offense that we've seen from the Cowboys over the past few years. And I would also note that Brian Schottenheimer's offense was extremely friendly to fantasy running backs in Seattle, as Chris Carson was a top 20 running back all 3 years in a row, including 1 top 12 RB1 finish. And at 1.06, we have Quinshon Judkins, who goes 6 picks behind Caleb Johnson, landing with the Denver Broncos. Again, about as ideal of a landing spot as we could possibly get for all 3 of these running backs, and for Judkins as the immediate RB1 with zero competition, and in a Sean Payton offense, no less. The really fun part here would be how Judkins could produce for fantasy with a larger receiving workload than he had in college. Sean Payton is notorious for targeting his running backs at an extremely high level in the passing game, but Judkins was never really used that much as a receiver in college. It's not to say that he can't do it, it just wasn't how he was used at either school in college. So to have Judkins in a role where he can succeed as that on-the-ground workhorse, but then add in the pass-catching upside under Sean Payton, his ceiling could be sky high if he's who we think he actually is. All right, quick break here from all the skill position players to put Shedeur Sanders at the 1.07, who does land 3rd overall with the New York Giants. Now, I am not the biggest Shedeur Sanders fan, and I'm not even sold on the fact that he even will be a top 5 or even top 10 overall pick in April. But if this is how the draft is going to go, and Shedeur does go top 3 to the Giants, you just can't ignore that. I can't ignore that he's going to be throwing the ball to Malik Neighbors, who by all accounts is really just his new Travis Hunter, to just get the ball to him and let him do work. And Neighbors is also better than Travis Hunter, which makes it even more fun. And spoiler alert, the Giants also draft a wide receiver with their second round pick that we'll get to in just a minute. So that offense looks way better across the board for a rookie quarterback to come in and succeed. If Shedeur Hunter actually hits in the NFL, you're going to be more than happy that you drafted him at the 1.07 in your drafts. All right, back to grouping some similar players together. This time, the next 3 picks are all at the wide receiver position, which I know you guys have probably been waiting for and wondering what has made them fall to this late first round area. So at the 1.08, I'm taking Travis Hunter, then 1.09 is Tet McMillan, and the 110 is Luther Burden. Now, the reason that I have Travis Hunter at the top as the rookie wide receiver 1 in this class with these landing spots is because he lands with the New England Patriots at 4th overall, the exact team that I want to see him go to because I believe is the one team that can maximize his fantasy potential as a full-time wide receiver. I'm already on board with taking the shot on Travis Hunter in this kind of mid-ish to late first area in Superflex, but putting him in New England makes this shot seem even better. I know they just signed Stephon Diggs, but Travis Hunter is better than Stephon Diggs right now, and I don't see how Vrabel and McDaniel and Drake May all watch this kid in minicamp and training camp and say, yeah, we just got to keep Travis Hunter on offense all the time. He's just that good. Matt Harmon literally just talked about this on his podcast for Yahoo Sports, and I agree 100% with his take.
I've said that since the combine, that the answer at the combine is going to be very different than the answer that we get when he gets drafted to a team, because they might just view him as a full-time wide receiver, or maybe they don't. And like we said, he gets into camp, it's like, that's our best wide receiver. And Drake May wants him on the field with him 100% of the time. And we got to do what we can for Drake May. So I'm with you. That I think we're kind of lockstep on Travis Hunter, who, if he is a wide receiver, is easily the best wide receiver in this class. I actually don't even think it's particularly close.
Everybody who's evaluated this class for Dynasty Fantasy Football has said that Travis Hunter would be the rookie wide receiver 1 if we knew that he was playing wide receiver full time. And I think that that happens in New England. I don't see how it doesn't when he is literally head and shoulders above everybody else on that team in terms of talent. Drafting him here at 1.08 is still honestly a risk discount in case he doesn't play receiver full time. I think that if we legitimately knew when the Patriots draft him that he is their 100% full-time wide receiver 1, I think that he would be in consideration to be a top 3 pick. I would draft him over Cam Ward. But because we really won't know until probably August, that risk is still baked in here at 1.08, and I will happily make that pick all day, every day, as the rookie wide receiver 1 in this class. Now, I will also acknowledge that a small part of the equation for my comfort level being so high in drafting Travis Hunter as the wide receiver 1 here is because I also don't really love Tet McMillan's landing spot to the Vegas Raiders at 6 overall. Don't get me wrong, he's their immediate wide receiver 1 over Jacoby Myers, but I'm also just not sold on him being better than Brock Bowers, and I'm not sold on him catching passes from Geno Smith in the short term. Plus, if Henderson is healthy for 15 or more games a season, he's probably ahead of Tet in the team totem pole in terms of how they want to run their offense. So if he's the second option in their passing game and the third option for the team as a whole, I don't really love that. But he is still a great wide receiver. He can be good for this team and be a solid fantasy wide receiver too, a la Jordan Addison or Devonta Smith. He just might not have the ceiling that we want him to have for fantasy football. And then Luther Burden is here at the 110, who lands with the Denver Broncos at 20th overall in the first round, a landing spot that I do really like. I actually wouldn't fault anyone for taking Luther Burden over Tet McMillan if these were the landing spots in draft capital. Yes, Burden would probably presumably be behind Courtland Sutton, but that is a much lower hurdle for Luther Burden to jump over than Tet has versus Brock Bowers. Not to mention that Bo Nix is a better quarterback. I trust Sean Payton more than Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly. maybe I am talking myself into Luther Burden over Tet McMillan if this happens. I mean, let me know down in the comments. Would you draft Tet or Luther Burden in these situations in the late first? I think I am switching over to Luther Burden now that I talk a little bit more about it. And then to wrap up the first round, we end with the top 2 tight ends in the class in Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, both drafted in the top 15 in Matt's mock, just 2 picks apart. Warren does get the slight nod here at the 111 as he was drafted first to the Dallas Cowboys at 12 overall. Then Loveland went 14th overall to the Indianapolis Colts. I think both players are pretty exceptional prospects, and their draft capital is backing that up here too. Warren's landing spot is presumably better as he can take over as the tight end 1 pretty much immediately, which yes, I do believe that he would be the tight end 1 over Jake Ferguson. And then Jake Ferguson is a free agent next year, so the pathway clears up even more for Tyler Warren in 2026, tied to Dak Prescott as the probable second option behind CeeDee Lamb. As for Loveland's situation, it may not seem super ideal, but Indianapolis is in massive need of some offensive playmakers, and a quarterback-friendly tight end like Colston Loveland would be perfect for them. Michael Pittman is getting older, might be slowing down after his production last year. Josh Downs can really only do so much for the type of player that he is, and Alec Pierce is really just a deep threat. So Loveland can slide in and be a PPR kind of guy for Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, or more likely whoever their next quarterback is in 2026. It is definitely a longer term play to draft Colston Loveland here, but I don't want to fade a very talented player just because his immediate situation might seem bleak, which it might not even be bleak. We don't really even know. All right, getting into the second round now. I'm not going to go pick by pick for the entire round, but I do want to give a good lay of the land for how this round looks with everybody's landing spots. I think the 2 most notable names left out of the first round were Emeka Egbuka and Matthew Golden, who both sit at 2.01 and 2.02. Egbuka is the aforementioned giant second round pick, which I don't hate, but I don't really love either, as it really sticks him into that NFL wide receiver 2 role behind Malik Neighbors and pairs him with Shedeur Sanders, who I also said I'm not a huge fan of, and I'm a little bit hesitant about his overall translation to the NFL. However, Egbuka is a very talented player, and if he's as talented as we think he is, 100 plus targets shouldn't be an issue for him in this offense, which would be more than fine for solid fantasy production. Now, Matthew Golden did get drafted in the first round, actually 18th overall to the Seattle Seahawks, but I personally still question Matthew Golden's just overall production profile out of college. Then you pair that with Sam Darnold, who I massively question outside of the Kevin O'Connell system with big downgrades at wide receiver. I don't really know if I love Matthew Golden in Seattle. I mean, it makes sense from an NFL standpoint. After trading away DK Metcalf, they need someone who can work that intermediate to deep parts of the field because JSN can do that, but is really rarely asked to, and Cooper Kupp really probably can't do that at this stage in his career. So Golden fills a void very nicely from an NFL standpoint. I'm just not sure if that translates to a big fantasy ceiling outside of picking really the right weeks to start him, kind of like Jameson Williams. Now, the rest of the second round is filled with very interesting names, draft capital, and landing spots. So starting with Jackson Dart, he was a late first round pick to the Rams as the heir to Matthew Stafford. If this happens, this feels kind of like Michael Penix or even JJ McCarthy 2.0, who could play as soon as 2025 since Stafford hasn't been the most healthiest player over the past couple of years, and with his age and contract situation, they both seem precarious enough that Jackson Dart could get the nod sooner rather than later, and having the ability to throw to Puka Nacua, maybe Devontae Adams still, you got Kyron Williams in the backfield in a Sean McVay offense. Sign me up for this landing spot for Jackson Dart, even if it takes a year or two for him to see solid starter reps. Trey Harris has some massive upside with Justin Herbert as the X receiver that they desperately need, as he is so much better than Quentin Johnston, far more reliable as far as hands go. So I absolutely love that pick here in the early second. Dylan Sampson might get an opportunity as the starter in Cleveland. We know what Jerome Ford is at this point, and I think Dylan Sampson is just probably better right now. So he's a fun name who could be a starter here drafted in this mid-second round. Jaden Higgins gets the X receiver role that the Bills have been wanting and that they tried to get with Amari Cooper and even want Keon Coleman to be. I love this pick a lot as I think Higgins is better than Keon Coleman and could make his mark as a starter with Khalil Shakir. But I also worry that the Bills are just so good everywhere else that they don't really need Jaden Higgins to be that guy or be the guy that Stephon Diggs was. So Higgins might be more of just like a fantasy wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3, with some spike weeks here and there just because he's tied to Josh Allen. Now, Cam Skattebo is the only other running back in this round as he actually finds himself competing for the starting job in Pittsburgh. And I have to say, Skattebo just fits that Mike Tomlin, Arthur Smith offense perfectly. And I do believe that he is better than Jaylen Warren. I only fear that he would be in more of a committee than we would like. Plus, really the major factor in why Skattebo is this low as a potential starter in Pittsburgh is because he was a 4th round pick in this mock draft. And I know we've seen some great players come out of day 3 this year like Bucky Irving and Chase Brown, but I also don't want to forget Dameon Pierce or Michael Carter or Tyler Algier or Jordan Howard or Marlon Mack. These guys usually don't stick around long, and even if they show production, have that 1,000-yard season, they are so easily thrown aside for someone better because of that draft capital that they're really hard to value highly in Dynasty. And don't act like Pittsburgh is just above drafting running backs high in drafts. They took Najee in the 1st round, James Conner was a 3rd round pick, Le'Veon was a 2nd round pick. They'll do it if they need to, and if Skattebo isn't their guy, they're gonna move on. Now, the rest of the 2nd round then are day 2 wide receivers like Alec Ayomaner, Jalen Knoll, and Jalen Royals, and then Kyle Williams slides in here despite being a 4th round pick, but he reunites with Cam Ward as the possible wide receiver 1 for Tennessee, or at least easy wide receiver 2 across from Calvin Ridley for 2025. I really wish he was a day 2 pick, but I won't argue with the landing spot at all, and I'm comfortable still drafting a day 3 wide receiver in this late 2nd round. And then Tyler Shuck was the Browns pick in the 2nd round, so he could be higher as the presumed 2025 starter for the team, but I also just don't really like him. I don't really see much of a difference between him and Kenny Pickett, both of whom I don't even know would even have a chance to start this year if Deshaun Watson was actually healthy. So sorry to all the Browns fans out there watching this one ain't it. And then for fun, here's the 3rd round that I ranked out based on mostly day 3 landing spots with a couple day 2 picks still in here. This is where I love attacking handcuff running backs, which we get a few in here like Devin Neal, Bashal Tutin, RJ Harvey, DJ Giddens, and my dude Jarquez Hunter gets to be the RB2 behind Derrick Henry, which I think is a fantastic landing spot to potentially be Chase Brown 2.0. Mason Taylor is in here actually at the top of the round at 3.01 as the Evan Ingram replacement on day 2. Jack Besh is in here as a day 2 pick to Dallas. Very interesting spot for him, even though I'm kind of pretty much out on him in general. We get some other backup quarterbacks, Elijah Arroyo, Isaiah Bonds, Savion Williams, all interesting names and landing spots in this 3rd round. But that's it. That's a look at how I would be mocking out a rookie draft based on Matt Miller's most recent 7-round NFL mock on ESPN. Let me know down in the comments how y'all feel about these landing spots and this rookie mock draft in general. Am I too high or too low on some people given their situations? And while you're at it, why not check out this video on some of my favorite sleepers to target late in your rookie drafts that you guys can check out right up here.